Drafting a BBM winner over on Underdog Fantasy. That is what we're doing today on the RotoViz Overtime podcast. I am joined by RotoViz writer Kevin Szafraniec. He joined me on the RotoViz Fantasy Football podcast this week as we dived into the options of the Green Bay Packers and the Titans, and much, much more as we work our way through. He will be back later this week for another edition, but we are jumping in to a draft. We got the 111, which is pretty fun spot in drafts this year with, the way that the first round and the players available have opened up. So we will talk through the picks, the plays, and what we want to do here as we move forward. Kevin has done a tremendous series up on rotoviz.com looking through the team season previews. He has half the teams done. There is one dropping pretty much every day. I would highly recommend you head over and check those out up on rotoviz.com. Kevin, we are at the 11 spot. We're 3 picks away. Who is your ideal selection here at the 111?
Sean's talked about it a lot, but I think the corner this year is great. So I'm usually generally happy going somewhat chalky. A lot of the times, especially, at the 11, I'll go wide receiver first and kind of seeing who wraps around. I mean, I like Ashton Genty, but like right now we have Nico, Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas. We're on the clock, 20 seconds.
Yeah, we did a show where we talked about the Texans. Should we set this up as a Nico Collins team based on that?
Yeah, let's do it.
I do like the other options there. Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Brian Thomas. I like Nico just slightly ahead. Like you did mention a worrying thing when we were doing that show where he hasn't stayed healthy season on season. But maybe this is the year he stays healthy. But we were going to have a chance for some of these guys to come back. So now it becomes a conversation with Brian Thomas, Drake London as the two potential picks, Lad McConkey. Brock Bowers goes here as well. But I feel like we'll probably go here with Brian Thomas unless you want to. I like London quite a bit, but which one do you want to go with?
I've been going Brian Thomas. I think he's just a tier above kind of where London is. So these 20 seconds clocks, we don't really have too much time.
Yeah, we have a 20-second clock as well. I should mention that. I just was thinking there, we'll just run down some conversation here. We'll be talking more post and pre-picks about the picks. But the other players that like listeners will know we really like there, is Brock Bowers. I talked on the show that's going to come out later this week for the RotoViz Fantasy Football Show. We talked a little bit about the 49ers and the wide receivers, and I talked about George Kittle. I think maybe we'll hopefully see if we can get him in. Not being a non-tight end premium format, there is some possibilities to add the additional wide receiver there and then add the tight end when the wide receivers start to drop off a little bit later. But you mentioned the players there, that you like in terms of just slightly ahead for the Drake London versus Brian Thomas Jr. selection. When we look at that, is there a clear break there for you, or is it kind of we're splitting hairs just on those particular players that go kind of in a row there at wide receiver?
There's kind of a clear break. I mean, I love Brian Thomas Jr., and I don't know if it's some like carryover from just hitting on him last year. I was really high on him last year, so he's one of my guys now. So I'm trying to kind of divorce some of that emotion away from it. Because I mean, London, has a awesome opportunity in front of him with Penix. And Penix targeted him a ton last year in the little bit of time that they did play. So it is a clear break for me, but I don't know if that's more thinking with my heart or my head.
Honestly. Yeah, and that can be and it's an interesting area there because when I'm on the clock in those drafts, like I am kind of in a rotation between pretty much at that point of the draft when those options are available, Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas, Drake London, kind of circling them around. And then if it's a case that say Drake London and Lad McConkey are available in the middle of that round, I'm going to go with those over Lad McConkey. But then once we get to that point, I'm Lad McConkey kind of over the names that go beyond that with the Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, and those kind of guys. But it is a case that like the wide receiver depth through Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, I think is very, very strong. So when you're on the clock, if you're at the back of the draft like we were here, it's kind of like taking the best option at ADP, obviously available. And it is hard to really feel like you've made a bad pick when you go through that range of the draft. So we start off Nico Collins, Brian Thomas. We are now about 5 picks away from the next pick. So let's do some predictions. Who do you want to get here at this turn? Because you mentioned the 20-second clock, so we don't have a lot of time to discuss it when we're on the clock.
Yeah, generally, I mean, I would probably be going back to wide receiver, just depending on just where we're sitting. JSN, if he makes it there, that'd be great. Ted McMillan's always a fun pick, and maybe if we get those two, I mean, the week 17 correlation between those two would be great if we could get them both. But we'll see what happens here. We're about 2 picks away.
Yes, we do. JSN goes. Trey McBride went just before that. I'm kind of interested here. We'll see if it makes it to us. But Ted McMillan followed by George Kittle through the turn, I think, could be my preferred option if it does show up to be that. So we are on the clock. We have some wide receivers, and our running back options will be Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, but we mentioned Ted McMillan. How do you feel about that if that works through the turn there?
Oh, I'm 100% okay with it. You want McMillan over?
Let's go with Ted, and we'll see. The difficulty is George Kittle goes right in the middle of the 4th round, kind of. He would generally go 3 picks after our pick, so we just need it to be missed here at this selection, and that would allow us to get George Kittle and set the team up with a lot of flexibility throughout the rest of the draft. Have you a backup option? No, we don't need a backup option. Who would your backup option have been if Kittle didn't make it to us there? Because you mentioned the 20-second clock adds a little bit of extra sweat to the conversation. For me, it would be Xavier Worthy would have been the backup pick.
Yeah, and I haven't had Worthy. I've drafted a ton of this year, so he would have been as far as wide receiver. I also like Devontae Smith, but honestly, I have been drafting a decent amount of the elite QBs this year, just for the fact that they're easy to stack up at the back end. It's not like you're, if you get Lamar or you get Josh Allen, you're not having any other their teammates in the first couple rounds. So they're pretty fun to stack up, as you don't have to focus on really building your stack in the first 2 rounds. You can just pick, best player available, and then you can add, some of their guys on at the back end. I mean, Lamar's really easy to stack up. If you can get Flowers to fall to wherever you're at and stack him, that's generally the hardest one. But then, I've been drafting a lot of Bateman. I'll draft both as tight ends. And Allen, obviously, Allen's a little harder. He's more of a standalone play. I'll draft some Khalil Shakir and maybe some of the guys at the end of the draft every once. I'll mix in Kincaid, but really I'm not drafting those guys generally unless I have Josh Allen. So, the long and short is I don't mind the elite quarterbacks this year either. But generally, I'm looking for I love getting Kittle there. I love generally going wide receiver.
Yeah, the other part, I mentioned Xavier Worthy. He hasn't gone yet, but he'll be long gone before it gets to us. But when you mention a player that you're like, oh, he would be a fallback option, and then he hasn't gone, 9 picks later, you're like, well, that would be nice if he made it all the way back. I agree with you on the Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson kind of tier there and how you're able to add them. And they do go both 2 picks and 4 picks after us. I do feel that that's an interesting way to play it if you get into those flat zones. That's usually my quarterback pivot point is, does it get flat, and is that then the clear best position play available? So I do like both of those. We are now coming up to a situation where Worthy still hasn't come off the board, so we will get into an interesting Worthy watch in a minute. He does go. We have had since our pick Mike Evans, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, George Pickens, Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, Cortland Sutton, Zay Flowers. A heavy run of wide receivers have gone off the board. You do have Kenneth Walker in the queue. I do think that he would be a nice play here. If he made it back to us, would be just slightly after ADP. We talked about Joan Jennings. You have mentioned him. We could potentially add him and then go for a 49ers stack if we wanted to go in that direction. RJ Harvey is an option that's available here, but it does get a little bit flatter here at the wide receiver position. We are 1 pick away. Is Walker the clear pick for you here if he makes it through?
Yeah, I like the correlation between him and as he goes, between him and Tet. But do you have any preference? I would either think Juwan, Trevion, or RJ Harvey.
Yeah, let's go for Joan Jennings. We'll set up a 49ers team here. And I almost had a fear there that you had just clicked to draft Alvin Kamara, but you did successfully. We're back on the clock here. We do have the option here of RJ Harvey or Henderson. We also have the option to get down to Jerry Jeudy or Jordan Addison. So I'll let you make the call here. Which one do you want to go for?
I mean, I like where our wide receivers are at, so I think Trevion would be a fun pick right here with our build.
Okay, and just on that, is your preference off those running backs? So if we go into With Kenneth Walker, with Henderson, we have Harvey. In terms of ADP, it goes Walker, then Harvey, then Henderson, but all within kind of 8 picks of each other. And the Walker drafter did also draft RJ Harvey on that wraparound there. So I do think the smart play there was to go with the Henderson pick. I also feel like there is that gap. We're talking about the wide receiver cliff. It'll be interesting to see what comes back to us, but we start to get edge very much closer to that at this particular point. But Henderson is real. Both him and Harvey, I find, again, going back to that conversation in the second round about the wide receivers, it's like balancing exposure too. You're like, I like both these guys probably pretty equally, and I'm just like, I don't want to have like 90% of one of them. So let's just balance it. Is that kind of how you're playing, or do you have a strong preference for Henderson?
I think my lean for Henderson only comes from the fact that I don't like the other guy in his backfield, whereas opposed to like with Harvey, I like Dobbins. With Walker, I like Charbonnet later in the draft. So I feel like Trevion is like my
So you're out completely on Stevenson?
I mean, I'll take him if I have to, depending on the room. Like I'll sprinkle him in, but I mean, I can't imagine that I'm going to be anywhere close to like even 5% exposure to him. But like
he finds me as one of those players who, I did a show last week where I talked with Denny Carter, and we did the disgusting process of talking through Rashad White versus Bucky Irving based on the ADPs, and it's kind of like sometimes we kind of overlook players based on how the previous year went or the expectations. And our expectations for what happened, obviously, with the Buccaneers was exactly what happened. But with the Patriots, for example, the last couple of years, Stevenson has failed to deliver. And he also, like, it could be pretty split between the two guys, but I do love the upside that Henderson has if he can forge his way. Like, we look at Henderson could be a bit like Gibbs, but Gibbs also has David Montgomery stuck in his as a thorn in his side, and I feel like we could get into a slightly similar situation with the Patriots. But I do like the pick there, but that's just kind of the devil's advocate conversation. We're 4 picks away again, coming up here at the 7-8 turn on the rapid clock. Who are we preferencing here as our options? You've Josh Downs, and I'm very much on board with that. Any other names for the wraparound or as a secondary option?
At this point, I mean, since we already have our tight end in Kittle, it's not like Hawkinson would be much of a priority. I'm pretty much, this is kind of a flat area of the draft, honestly. I mean, my lean may be to go as down just goes. So now we're really left. I mean, going with the some of the rookies. I mean, we could go with, if we want to reach a little bit on Higgins, we can grab him to pair up with Collins. But if there's any other players above him who you would prefer, I'm okay. Like I like Buka too.
The other option is to make it just a 2 tight end build and to take Hawkinson as just the second tight end. Do you have a preference between Higgins and Hawkinson?
No, but I think we could probably get them both. Okay.
Well,
shoot, we just timed out.
We got Higgins.
We'll see if he lasts two more picks. Nope.
I was intrigued. There's a lot of other ways that we can play, but we're back up again. So I feel like this could become a Jordan Mason pick. How do you feel about Jordan Mason, or have you another running back that you prefer here?
No, I like Jordan Mason. I've been taking him over. I mean, we're currently picking him over Aaron Jones, so he's been my preference out of that backfield as well. Even though I still like Aaron Jones. He's one of my favorite players to watch. But I think it really is a toss-up. I really do feel like it's a 50-50 split, but just with age on his side, and I just think that Mason's a better pick, especially considering how Minnesota just completely just revamped their interior line. Hopefully we see some better interior blocking next year. So I'm hoping Mason's the right direction in that backfield.
I do think we can probably at this point add in the 2 quarterbacks here. We can add in 49ers and Texans QBs just to make sure that we have them in the queue for when we're working through. When we're looking at like where they'll probably go, you have that risk of like when you're in these drafts, do you want to push it because people may pass up on it? But Brock Purdy is a 9th round pick as QB 11 generally, and then we do have a weight to QB 20 for CJ Stroud in the 12th round. So that is just adding them in to kind of get things set up. So we are now in the 8th round, so we're kind of getting into the Purdy territory. have you any other names when we get into this round, like by ADP? Jalen Warren usually goes, but he's going to be gone, I think, long before it gets back to us. It's Bo Nix, Travis Kelce, Travis Etienne, Justin Fields, Keon Coleman, Brock Purdy, Tyrone Tracy, Trey Harris, Mark Andrews, Rashid Shaheed, Evan Ingram. Like when we're looking through that, like the player that's actually probably the next target is in the 10th round, Cam Scadaboo. I'm probably looking here at coming through these 2 rounds potentially with Purdy and Scadaboo. Have you other targets that you want to talk about here?
No, I mean, sometimes I've been reaching for Dobbins a little bit. It is pretty flat here. I mean, I like Charbonnet as just I know, Walker's the more exciting choice, but he also misses a lot of time. So, I mean, we saw kind of what Charbonnet can do, and he's not exciting. He's not a guy that I was really high on the first 2 years of his career. But I mean, even with the new coaching staff or new offensive coordinator, I mean, I'm not 100% sold that Walker will be the 100% like RB1 for the team, all season long. So whether it be by injury or just, they get mad because he's like trying to bounce runs or whatever. So I do think that there is a case for Charbonnet. I draft them both. So it's not saying I'm out on Walker by any means, but I do like Charbonnet. Long answer short, I like Charbonnet as a 0 RB play this year.
Yeah, as a fallback.
Mhm.
I think it'll be like, if we're saying just between those 2 guys, fantasy points wise, I think it'll be 65, 35 in favor of Walker, at worst, barring an injury. But I also think that Walker, with the offensive line and how the team is set up here, is set up in a very, very strong position to eventually get some offensive lines that he can run through, which hasn't been the case. So we are on the clock here with 13 seconds. Purdy gets to us. Any other names before we click on it? He probably is the pick here.
Well, Purdy's the pick, but I would also bring up when we wrap around the corner, if we want to bring back on that 49ers Week 17 matchup, I would add Luther Burden in there. So probably next up would be like either Luther Burden or Scadaboo would be the 2 that I would assume, would probably be the conversation that we need to have.
Yeah, and I do wonder with the Scadaboo pick, would that make it more sense with a team build? We're up to 5 wide receivers at this particular point, but we are pretty balanced. We have the options.
We don't. Our decision was made for us.
Well, actually, what my call was going to be when it got to the last pick was, do we want to take Scadaboo and see if we can push Purdy through the corner? So it worked out. We got the 2 guys. So let's do that. We do have 2 Week 14 buys with the 2 rookies there in Scadaboo and Henderson. So we'll probably not try and load up on Week 14 running backs the rest of the way. But that gives us 3 running backs paired then with the 5 wide receivers that I mentioned, and then Brock Purdy along with Travis George Kittle. So I'm not editing that out, but yeah, Travis Kittle, the new tight end that we have this offseason. I was talking before we started recording today with Kevin that last night my son, who's now almost 10 months old, 3 a.m. wake up call became the dad duty. So there may be some slips of the tongue over the course of the draft here as we make these selections. But I think we're off to a nice place here as we enter that halfway point. As we look into these later rounds, the part there where we take another running back, and I know it's only 3 through 10, but there is a limited range of wide receiver targets now through the rest of this draft, and that is part of the tricky part for me when we take 3 running backs there, that a lot of my favorite picks as we work through the rest of the draft are the rookie running backs. How are you feeling, with the balance of the team so far, and how we're going to work through the rest of the rounds here? What are we looking at for your, kind of perfect balance of a roster for a winning team in BBM?
Well, this is pretty indicative of a lot of my builds off the rip. So I mean, I'm comfortable. Like I said, we do hit a really bad patch of wide receiver value talent here. I mean, there's some guys that are okay. You look at Marvin Mims. He has the question marks about will he be able to hold the role that he had at the end of the season. I mean, I draft a decent amount of Quentin Johnston on honestly, especially coming back with the Houston correlation that we have going on. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I don't necessarily know if Trey Harris will, beat him out. Or if anything, it could be more of a split. So I'm not 100% on the Trey Harris is 100% the wide receiver 2 for them, and even reports coming out of Chargers camp say that it could be Mike Williams is starting as of now across from McConkey, which I don't believe at all. So this is just a great area, more or less, for grabbing running backs and grabbing quarterbacks. I mean, the ADP just shakes out really well this year for the builds we like.
Yeah, so we are looking here. The teams at the turn both have 1 QB each. We have 1 QB. CJ Stroud is coming into this range, so we probably do want to take him in the next 2 picks. We have the option here, though, of like Tootin or Ray Davis at the running back position, unless we want to look at some of the wide receivers that go over the next round. But do you want to take Stroud here, or do you want to take one of those rookie running backs?
I'm okay with Stroud because I believe that we have a good we have three running backs I'd be okay with taking right here.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's the split between those 3 names. Trey Benson was the other one that you mentioned. One of those has to get back. So Davis went. Tootin is still there. So we have the 2 options. So Tootin is available. Just in terms of the wide receivers, Quentin Johnson may go in that next round if you wanted to take him. But do you want to take Tootin here?
Yeah, I'd rather have one of these running backs. I just feel like their upside's a lot better than Quentin Johnson. So, but yeah, I mean, Quentin Johnson he's definitely not a priority target, but he's still somebody who I think has more upside than maybe we're giving him. I'm just really boomer bust. He's not a guy I would want in redraft, but in best ball, I feel like he's okay. He's not somebody that, I don't think he makes a whole lot of sense as far as redraft teams where you actually have to make a conscious decision to add him into a lineup. But if he hits a spike week, 2 or 3 times a year, like, as wide receiver 1 week, I think that's pretty good outcome. Throws in some wide receiver 2 weeks along the way too.
This area does really get pretty ugly for wide receivers as we work our way through it. So we'll see what we patch in as we work the rest of the way. Probably would want to get 1 to 2 more here as we work those rounds, but it does get pretty disgusting. But the QJ one would work really well with the Texans bring back, as you have referenced already. So we'll see which names come back through. Looking just ahead, I've up the ADP tool here on RotoViz.com, and looking at that kind of 13th, 14th range where we're going to be picking, you do get into names like Quentin Johnson's usually gone before, but the 13th round, Adam Thielen, Jalen McMillan, moving through them. There's some tight ends, wide running backs, but you do get Pat Bryant at wide receiver. Then getting into the next round, you're getting into like Jalen Noel. I don't know if we want to get 3 receivers deep with CJ Stroud. He would be normally one of the kind of the lit picks that I would be considering. You get Wan'Dale Robinson, Demario Douglas, Slayton, Deontay Thornton, Denami Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Like it's pretty rough out here. So who are some of the wide receivers that you do tend to like late that haven't gone yet?
I mean, I've been taking Noel a decent amount, more as a late season play, especially considering I think we have a solid wide receiver core or wide receiver room already built. So like this is one of the instances, especially with Stroud, where I'd be like, okay, taking him because he's more of a late season bet. I do think Kirk will probably start the season off kind of playing ahead of him. Dobbs, I've been taking a ton of Dobbs. I think he's just kind of, we talked about it in the show earlier in the week. Like he really is, he's kind of like the lost man on that. He's going to run routes. He's going to be involved, as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be involved. So Dobbs is a guy as he goes, and as QJ just went as well. So, but yeah, Noel, I'd be okay with. I mean, Pat Bryant's fun. I mean, I've been kind of mixing up my exposure to the different Denver wide receivers at the end of the draft between Bryant. I'll grab some Vele. I'll grab some Troy Franklin. Especially obviously if I have either Kansas City players or Denver players for those bringbacks and everything. So we're actually we're on the clock now, but Josh Palmer's the top wide receiver by ADP. Of McMillan.
Yeah, I think we probably go Noel here, unless you want to push it a bit more. Add him to the queue anyway. Let's look at some of the tight end options that are available. If there's anything
Jonnu or Brenton Strange.
Yeah, no, we'll take Noel here. We'll go into the another one. So we are going to be picking again in 2 picks. So you can set it up here as to which options you like. We did get wiped out a little bit with those wide receivers. Any of the tight ends that you do like here, or any of these running backs?
I like Strange a lot. I've been, especially with kind of some of the Jacksonville players we already have, kind of betting on the Jacksonville offense. I'd be okay with that. I don't know how you feel about him.
I haven't drafted him. If you want to make the click, you make the click. He wouldn't be my preferred option, but we are going to run short on time. So you've kind of beat me to it here, unless there's another name that you want to.
I mean, we got Jalen McMillan if you'd rather.
Let's do McMillan then.
Okay, let's see if I can swap him real quick. I mean, when I did the tight end advanced stats series, like Strange, I don't know. I mean, Evan Greenberg probably wasn't great last year, but really just looking at the two together, they matched up pretty well. So especially more if I had I probably would have pushed a little harder if we would have had like Lawrence on the roster, but since we don't have him, it's not really as big of a deal. I mean, I like some of these other tight ends I like late. I've been drafting a lot of Drake May, so in turn Hunter Henry I think is a boring option that probably could score decent. Gesicki, there's a lot made, at least at RotoViz, especially Blair brought this to my attention, was, how well Gesicki played when T. Higgins wasn't on the field.
Yeah.
But even towards the end of the season, when all three, when we had Higgins, Chase, and Gesicki still played pretty well, as they got really hot down the stretch. So he's a guy that I'm not opposed to taking. But even especially, a lot of times I'm willing to push tight end if I have one of the 3 elite top guys, so having Kittle on the roster really does, I feel like afford us a lot of flexibility as far as what we can, really do at tight end.
Yeah, my preference now would be the last 2 rounds to take, 2 out of Jatavian Sanders, Terrence Ferguson, and Harold Fanning. That would be my preferred 17th, 18th round pick, and then taking, best player available basically these next 2 rounds, which is probably going to be running back for us on this particular team. I believe we're now up to 7 wide receivers, 3. No, we're up to 4 running backs now. Is that correct?
There we go. Yeah, 4.
Yeah, 4, 7, 1, 1. So that would get us a 2, 4, 7, 3, and then we would have 2 additional picks probably to get to 6 at running back. Is that how you're feeling about it at the moment?
Yeah, I like that, especially with as much draft capital as we dropped in at the wide receiver position early. It kind of affords us to really just have the flexibility to do whatever we want, I feel like. So I feel between tight ends and spending up at wide receiver, I think we're good to go.
And I think when it's Scadaboo and Henderson as rookies, I think there is a level of floor for the opening week. Sometimes when you're drafting a rookie heavy running back room like this, you're kind of looking at, what are we going to do weeks 1, weeks 2, weeks 3? This one, along with Jordan Mason, I think there is a floor there to be built in to get a ceiling as the season goes along. So my take here is usually the players that I'm looking to draft now are still the rookie running back. So I know I'm drafting with you, so the answer is probably going to be yes. But any fear of drafting, 2 more rookie running backs at this point, or have you other running backs that are, priorities? The one now that is in the queue that you have added is DJ Giddens. He would be one that I think there's less of a early season floor. We did talk about the Packers. I do like Marshawn Lloyd as well as a non-rookie in this area. So we are up, and I kind of made you not draft the tight end that you wanted in the last round. So do you want to take the first running back here that comes off the board, whichever one you prioritize?
I mean, I don't think you're going to argue with this. If we take Jarvis,
that's the one I wanted. That was going to be the one that I wanted, but I thought I would get him at the next pick because there is he may work his way through to that next one. That was Jaquez Hunter that we did draft there. So now in the queue we have Will Shipley, DJ Giddens, Brashad Smith, and Marshawn Lloyd. How do you feel about Lloyd? Am I too optimistic on him denting into Jacobs' role here?
No, but I also like Emmanuel Wilson too, just writing up the Packers. I like both of them, so I'm okay with either of those guys. But whoever you want to pick is okay with me here.
No, you can do it. There's 8 seconds left. You're at the controls.
I mean, I go Shipley just on the contingent upside play if you're okay with that.
That's okay. Yeah, you did have him at the top of the queue when I kind of pushed for the other pick the last time. So that's we got both of those guys. The Shipley play is an interesting one because last year he was somebody I targeted heavily because I kind of had completely, went out on Saquon, was past it. And obviously that wasn't the case as what we seen last year. I guess the part now is they've won the Super Bowl. Do they, ride Barkley early in the season, do the wheels fall off, or with some of the chances that Shipley had to spell Barkley, even though it was like the team was well up and it didn't really matter, does that earn him some work as a standalone option this season? So are you thinking that Shipley has anything standalone, or is it a case that it would have to take Barkley missing time for him to have a significant role?
Yeah, I'm kind of at the latter half. I don't think he
Yeah, I
has
am.
much of a standalone.
Because I feel that you had Giddens in the queue as well, and if Giddens was in a different offense, not behind Jonathan Taylor, I'd be like, this guy is set up for a lot of success this year. But I kind of feel like with the likes of a Shipley or a Giddens, there isn't a huge standalone value for me with those guys, and maybe Hunter's the same, but I think Hunter can work his way in based on the kind of some of the efficiency issues that Kyron Williams has had over the last couple of seasons. So the other guys I think can work their way in, even Tootin, for example. I think with the likes of Giddens or Shipley, it is going to take an injury, unfortunately, to the guy in front. But when we're adding him now as our probably last running back in this particular draft, I think we have enough options in front to give that security. And then when you're in this range and you're looking for something that could completely alter the course and trajectory of a team when it gets to the fantasy playoffs, Will Shipley is a pick that could potentially happen with, based on taking him there. I do like Marshawn Lloyd as somebody who I think has standalone value entering the season. He just goes off the board shortly after he missed the season for a variety of reasons last year. But yeah, we have 3 tight ends in the queue. Harold Fanning generally goes undrafted in this format. Terrence Ferguson's usually the last guy drafted at the 18-12. So have you a priority out of those guys there? I really do like Sanders. Prior to the injury last year, I thought there was a real breakout about to happen. I think that offense can take a step forward as well. The one thing I would check is the buy for Kelsey as week, or Kittle as week 14. So would that make you change? I think I might still go Ferguson and then Sanders. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's rough because we're really kind of taking a shot on whether Ferguson was going to emerge over Higbee. We would hope so. But
Let's take Sanders anyway, and then take one of the 2 rookies. Okay. We'll just have to rest that week.
Yeah, so I honestly, I have not really taken much fan in non-tight end premium this offseason.
Yeah, and it is a little bit tricky, with him going undrafted. Ferguson's going late enough. I don't think you need to really make sure you're getting some undrafted guys here. I'm kind of glad we took the Sanders pick, because Juwan Johnson did go 1 pick after. In terms of ADP, that probably made the most sense. The bye week is obviously not ideal. Is there any of the other tight ends that are available here that you would prefer over Ferguson? I'm just looking for the complete upside. Like, we could look now and be like, oh, how do we get some points in week 14? But realistically, like, some of these tight ends are going to be injured in week 14. I would rather be going for who is the one that could be like a superstar when it comes to that point of the season. Yeah. And I feel like he fits that. So week 14, there could be a little bit of a squeeze on this roster based on how we're set up here. But overall, I think it's very, very interesting with what we've done. So in terms of the full roster, it is Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, it's Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Cam Scadaboo, Tootin, Jarquez Hunter, Will Shipley, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas Jr. We get Ted McMillan, Joanne Jennings, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Jalen McMillan. We have lots of Jalen's, Joanne's, Jaden's, Jatavion. This is the J team for sure. And then the wide receivers is George Kittle, Jatavion Sanders, and Terrence Ferguson. So lots of upside, lots of rookies, and lots of talent. And having the 2 rookies behind it, George Kittle, is a pretty fun play. And then having, I think, a pretty balanced and relatively loaded roster across the board. Not as much in-game week 17 stacking action, but we got a couple of those team stacks in pretty straightforward at ADP.
Yeah, so I'm happy. This is pretty representative of a lot of my drafts. So say we're not going off brand here whatsoever.
So that is the team that's going to win BBF 5 here this season. Hopefully it takes it all down. Hope people have enjoyed listening in to the draft as we went rapid fire there. Having turns on the corners can be a challenge. Having turns on the corners with 20-second clocks while you're recording a show to put out is always a challenge as well. But I had a fun draft with Kevin Szafraniec. I mentioned earlier the articles and so on that are up on rotoviz.com that you can check out. Lots of great work there. You can also follow him on social media at the CatDadFF. I will have a link to that in today's show notes. Kevin, as we get ready to close this out and celebrate, another thing to celebrate in this draft, Harold Fanning got drafted at the 18-10. So he did not go undrafted in this one. He could be the clincher for the team that drafted out of the 3 spot. So it's nice to see some of those undrafted guys get pulled up into the ADP. But let the listeners know a little bit more about the articles that are up on rotoviz.com.
Yeah, so they're pretty much comprehensive team preview articles. So we're not just looking at the regular fantasy stuff. We're diving deep into the offensive lines, the defense, their pace last year, coaching changes, all of that. And it's really highlighting a lot of the RotoViz tools. So you're getting a lot of the game splits app. The pace app is a heavy part of that. The passing matchup rater. It's really just, it gives us a comprehensive view of, each team, and then not totally comprehensive. We have so many tools that it's hard to squeeze them all into one article, but some of the tools that you should be using, all season long if you sub the RotoViz. So, I mean, it really gives you a good feel for the NFL this year. It gives you a good feel for RotoViz, and everybody just needs to go check them out because tons of fun. They're tons of fun writing. I can't even express like how much I'm learning just by writing them. So I'm hoping that obviously that transfers over to people reading them as well. But just basically, it's just taking a whole deeper look, really kind of peeling back the top layer and really just diving deep into every team, every player. So it's tons of fun, and hopefully it helps out a lot of people winning some money.
Awesome stuff. So I would recommend checking those out. Check out the shows that I'm doing with Kevin over on the RotoViz Fantasy Football podcast feed as well. Those going up this week. The first one will be out already. The second one will be coming out later this week. So check them out as we work through some of those articles that we have just discussed. My name is Colm Kelly. You can follow me on social media at Overtime Ireland. Thank you once again to Kevin for jumping aboard this series. I will be back with Sean next week for more RotoViz OT. And until then, have a good one.